The incoming threat. The Xel'var Dominion had ruled this sector of space for over 200 years. Their fleets were unmatched, their technology superior, and their war doctrine simple: crush all who resist. On the bridge of the Xel'var flagship Vorthak, Admiral Keln stood tall, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. He looked at the holographic map projected above the war table. An unidentified ship was approaching their territory. Keln let out a slow breath. Another fool. Another easy victory. The officer at the scanning terminal glanced up. His voice was calm, almost bored. "Admiral, a single warship has entered the system. No escort. No fleet. They are not responding to hails." Keln raised an eyebrow. "One ship. Alone? Which empire does it belong to?" The officer hesitated. "It's human, sir." Keln's eyes narrowed. Human. A few minor skirmishes had been reported with the Terran fleet, but humans were nothing special. Their technology was primitive compared to the Dominion. Keln smirked. "Send a standard warning. If they don't turn around, destroy them." The officer nodded. "Yes, Admiral." He turned back to his console, fingers moving across the control panel. A transmission was sent. Silence. The human warship did not respond. And worse, it did not stop. It was coming straight for them. A ship that should not exist. Minutes passed. The human warship came into range. The bridge crew stared at the readings. Something was wrong. Keln stepped forward. "Show me the ship." A live visual feed appeared on the central screen. The moment Keln saw it, his smirk faded. The ship was unlike any human vessel they had encountered before. Its dark, angular hull seemed to absorb light. Its energy signature was unstable, fluctuating in ways their scanners could not understand. And it was fast. Too fast. The officer's voice wavered. "Admiral, this isn't a standard Terran warship." Keln's grip on the war table tightened. What had humanity built? First contact turns to first fire. Keln turned to his weapons officer. "Fire a warning shot. Make them stop." The command was carried out instantly. A massive plasma beam fired from the Vorthak, cutting through the darkness of space. It raced toward the human warship. And then, the human ship moved. Not in a way that made sense. Not like any ship should be able to move. It tilted sharply, its engines pulsing, twisting in an impossible maneuver. The plasma shot missed. Keln froze. No ship had ever dodged like that before. The hunters become the hunted. The bridge was silent. The officer at the weapons console swallowed. "Admiral, should we fire again?" Keln's eyes remained locked on the screen. The human ship was accelerating. It wasn't evading anymore. It was coming straight at them. With intent. With precision. With hunger. Keln exhaled slowly. "Raise shields. Prepare all weapons." The officer hesitated. "Sir, it's just one ship." Keln's voice was a whisper. "And yet, I feel like we are the ones being hunted. The name that brings fear." The transmission console beeped. A message was coming through. Not from their own fleet. Not from the human warship. But from Xel'var High Command. The officer nearest to the console read the message aloud. "Admiral Keln, retreat immediately. Do not engage." The bridge went silent. Retreat. The Dominion had never backed down from a single enemy ship. Keln's jaw tightened. "Explain." The officer's voice shook as he continued. "Sir, the ship's signature has been identified. It's not just any human warship. It's the Revenant." Keln's heart stopped. The first shots. The bridge of the Vorthak was dead silent. Admiral Keln's scaled hands gripped the war table, his claws digging into the metal. The message from Xel'var High Command still echoed in his mind. "Retreat immediately. Do not engage." But that wasn't possible. The Revenant was already here. And it wasn't slowing down. A ship born from nightmares, the human warship cut through space like a phantom, its hull absorbing light, making it look more like a shadow than a ship. Kelm's officers were frozen, their usual arrogance crumbling under the weight of something they couldn't understand. The comms officer finally spoke, his voice wavering. "Sir, what is the Revenant?" Kelm didn't answer immediately. He had heard the stories. Every admiral had. A ship that shouldn't exist. A ship that had appeared in lost battles, where fleets had gone missing without a trace. No wreckage, no survivors. Just a black void where thousands of soldiers used to be. The last warning. Kelm clenched his jaw. He was not a superstitious fool. This was just a human warship. It could be destroyed, just like any other. Right? He turned to his officers, his voice sharp. "Send one final warning. Tell them to stand down." The comms officer's claws tapped nervously on the controls as he transmitted the message. A long, tense silence followed. Then, the Revenant responded. A single message, cold and final. Too late. The first shot, and the last mistake. Kelm's breath caught. His voice snapped like a whip. "Fire. Everything we have." The Vorthak unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma cannons, ion torpedoes, disruptor beams, enough firepower to wipe out entire fleets. The weapons screamed through space, streaks of death aimed directly at the Revenant. Every officer on the bridge held their breath. Then, the human ship vanished. A ship that moves like a hunter. 1 second, it was right there. The next, empty space. The plasma cannons passed harmlessly through the void, striking nothing. Confused gasps filled the bridge. Where did it go? The scanners blinked in frantic confusion. Then, a new reading. The Revenant had reappeared. Behind them. Point-blank range. Kelm's stomach dropped. He barely had time to shout. "EVA as IV. The Revenant strikes." Before he could finish, it fired. Not a full barrage. Not some reckless attack. A single calculated shot. A glowing blue lance of energy ripped through the void, faster than light itself. It struck the Vorthak's engines with surgical precision. The explosion was instantaneous. The Vorthak lurched violently, alarms blaring as power failed across the ship. Kelm was thrown against the war table, his vision spinning. The hunter's message. The bridge was in chaos. Smoke filled the air. Sparks rained from shattered consoles. Weapons were offline. Engines crippled. Shields gone. And then, the Revenant spoke again. The voice cut through the static, deep, calm, and terrifyingly human. "You had your chance." Kelm's heart pounded. This wasn't a battle. This wasn't even a war. This was a lesson. And they were the ones being taught. The Revenant's next move. Kelm coughed, forcing himself up. His vision blurred, his scales scorched from the explosion. "What is their next move?" he rasped. His scanning officer's voice shook. "They are not leaving, sir." Kelm's blood turned to ice. "They are." The officer hesitated. "They are circling us." Kelm's claws dug into the metal. A warship that could vanish at will. A warship that only fired when necessary. A warship that wasn't in a rush to kill them. It was toying with them, hunting them. A terrifying truth. For the first time in his career, Kelm felt true fear. He turned to his comms officer. "Open a channel." "To who?" the officer asked, his voice shaking. Kelm took a slow breath. He was at Xel'var Admiral, a commander of thousands of warships, a ruler of a feared and dominant empire. And yet, as he spoke, the words felt alien in his mouth. To the humans, the bridge fell silent. No one dared speak. No one dared question him. They all knew. There was only one way to survive this. They had to surrender. The surrender that never came. Admiral Kelm's clawed fingers trembled as he activated the comms. His pride burned, but his fear was greater. The Revenant had crippled his ship with one shot. Now it was circling them like a predator. The Xel'var Dominion had crushed empires. But today, Keln was about to beg for mercy. He swallowed hard and spoke. "This is Admiral Keln of the Xel'var Dominion. We surrender." Silence. The human answer. For a moment, nothing happened. The bridge crew held their breath. Then, the Revenant stopped moving. It hovered in the void, its black hull absorbing all light. And then, through the static, the human voice returned. Calm. Cold. "No." Keln's blood froze. "The trap is sprung." His officers turned to him in horror. "Sir," they're refusing surrender." That was impossible. This was the rule of war. If one side surrendered, the battle ended. But the Revenant wasn't following the rules. Keln's breath hitched. They weren't here for war. They were here for something else. Something worse. A predator's patience. The comms crackled again. "You thought we'd let you walk away." The voice had no emotion, no hatred, no satisfaction. Just certainty. Keln's mind raced. This wasn't an act of vengeance. This was strategy. A warship like the Revenant didn't just fight. It hunted. And right now, they were still in a trap. The Dominion's desperation. One of his officers turned, his voice shaking. "Sir, what do we do?" Keln felt his own panic rising. The Dominion had always been the stronger force. But now, against a single human ship, they were helpless. His pride screamed at him to fight back, to do something. Then his scanning officer gasped. "Admiral, more human ships, incoming." The Revenant was never alone. Keln's stomach dropped. The holographic map flickered as new signals appeared at the edge of the system. 1, 2, 5, 10. More Revenants. The weight of the human fleet. The Xel'var officers stared in horror as the black warships materialized from the void. Each one was silent. Each one was waiting. And then Keln understood. This was never about this battle. This was about sending a message, a warning written in fire. The comms activated one last time. The human voice was calm, but this time it carried finality. "You will return to your empire. You will tell your leaders what happened here. And you will remember." Keln's throat was dry. "Remember what?" The Revenant's weapons powered up. The human captain spoke softly. "That humans are not prey." The final shot. Keln squeezed his eyes shut. He had spent his career fearing nothing. Now he understood what true terror felt like. A blinding flash filled the bridge. The last thing he saw was his fleet being erased from existence. And then, darkness, the galaxy's reckoning. The Xel'var Dominion had never known fear. Until now. The destruction of Admiral Keln's fleet had sent a shockwave through their empire. A single human warship had outmaneuvered, outgunned, and erased an entire battle group. And worse, the Revenant was never alone. More black warships had arrived, proving that humanity was not just a threat. They were the end of any species foolish enough to challenge them. The aftermath. Panic in the Dominion. On the capital world, Xel'var Prime, the High Council gathered in a war chamber deep beneath the surface. The room was filled with holographic projections, battle reports, intelligence updates, and the last transmission from Keln's fleet. A cold silence filled the air. Then, Supreme Chancellor Vorthax, the most powerful leader of the Dominion, spoke. His voice was low, controlled, but deadly. "We underestimated them." His ministers shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a war strategist named Lorukan, cleared his throat. "This was one ship, Chancellor." "Surely." Vorthax's eyes narrowed. "One ship. Asterisk, 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 asterisk against 20 of ours." He stood, his towering form casting a shadow over the room. "Tell me, Lorukan, if one human warship could do this, what will happen if they send 100? The room fell silent. No one had an answer. Because they all knew the truth. The Dominion was no longer the apex predator of the galaxy. The Council divides. Two factions emerged within the Xel'var leadership. The Warhawks, who demanded immediate retaliation, claiming the humans were still a primitive race that could be overwhelmed with superior numbers. The Pragmatists, who argued that humanity was no longer a minor species, but a rising superpower that could not be fought through brute force. The debate was furious. Some wanted to send a full-scale invasion fleet to Earth, to wipe humanity out before they became unstoppable. Others insisted that such a move would be suicide. Finally, Supreme Chancellor Vorthax silenced them all. His eyes glowed with cold determination. "This is not a war we can win with force alone." A murmur ran through the chamber. "Then what do we do?" one of the ministers asked. Vorthax exhaled slowly. Then he turned to his intelligence officer. "We need to understand them, their history, their weaknesses." His voice grew darker. "If we cannot defeat the humans with war, we will break them from within." The human response. Back on the human side of space, the battle had already changed everything. The Revenant and its fleet had vanished once again. No wreckage, no traces, like ghosts in the void. But the message had been delivered. The galaxy knew now. Humanity was not to be provoked. On Earth, within the highest military command rooms, Terran leaders debated their next move. Should they push further? Should they wait for retaliation? Or was this only the beginning? One thing was certain. The Xel'var would not forget this defeat. And next time, they wouldn't come with warships. They would come with something worse. The war in the shadows. The battle had ended. But the war had just begun. The Xel'var Dominion had always conquered through force. Now, for the first time in their history, they would have to conquer through fear. Supreme Chancellor Vorthax sat in his private war chamber, staring at the holographic image of Earth, a planet untouched by war, a species that had been ignored by the greater empires. And yet, they had built the Revenant, a ship that moved like a ghost and struck like a god. Vorthax exhaled slowly. "We will not fight them head-on." His war council listened in silence. "We will break them from within." The infiltration begins. For the first time in centuries, the Xel'var turned away from open war. Instead, they sent their most skilled infiltrators. Spies, assassins, saboteurs. Their mission was clear. Find the minds behind the Revenant. Find the factories that built it. Find the weakness humanity was hiding. If humanity could not be crushed in battle, they would be erased before the next war even began. Humanity's first clue. Admiral Elias Wren stood in Terran High Command, his hands folded behind his back. The battle against the Xel'var fleet had changed everything. But something felt wrong. His intelligence teams had picked up strange transmissions, coded messages, encrypted in ways that didn't match any known Xel'var military standard. They weren't sending fleets anymore. They were sending something else. Wren exhaled slowly. They know they can't win a battle. So what are they planning? The answer came 2 days later. A human engineer, one of the minds behind the Revenant's design, was found dead. Not in a war zone. Not on a battlefield. But in his own home. A silent war begins. The official reports called it an accident. But Wren wasn't stupid. More scientists started disappearing. Key personnel from Terran intelligence went missing. Critical research files were wiped clean. This was no longer a battle in space. This was a war that would never be seen. A war fought in shadows, lies, and silence. A war that humanity could not afford to lose. Because if the Xel'var succeeded, the next time they faced the Revenant, there would be no human left to pilot it. The Revenant returns. Just as the Xel'var believed they were winning in the shadows, something happened. A signal was detected at the edge of Xel'var space, a familiar energy signature, one that sent a wave of fear through their military ranks. The Revenant had returned. It did not send a message. It did not warn them. It simply appeared, in the dead of space, motionless, waiting. And the Xel'var Dominion held its breath. Had the humans discovered their spies? Was this a warning? Or was it something worse? A new transmission cut through their encrypted channels. A single sentence, spoken in perfect Xel'var dial. The hunters become the hunted. The Xel'var spies thought they were unseen. They thought they had slipped into human society, moving like ghosts in the dark, dismantling Earth's defenses one mind at a time. They were wrong. The trap they never saw coming. On a cold, moonless night, inside a Terran research facility, a Xel'var agent named Xel'var moved silently through the ventilation shafts. His mission was simple: infiltrate the facility, steal the blueprints of the Revenant, destroy all traces of human advancements. His breath was steady, his movements precise. He had trained for 100 years to become invisible. But as he reached for the terminal containing classified human data, something shifted in the shadows. Then, click, a cold barrel of a gun pressed against his head. A human voice whispered, calm and unshaken. Took you long enough. Xel'var's blood turned to ice. The silent war erupts. Across human space, one by one, Xel'var spies vanished. They had spent months carefully planting themselves in Terran society, dismantling human security from within. And now, they were being picked off, intercepted before they could finish their missions. A coordinated, precise, and merciless counterattack. The Xel'var were supposed to be the masters of deception. Yet, somehow, the humans had seen them coming. How did the humans know? Back on Xel'var Prime, the Dominion's war council was in chaos. Their deepest cover operatives, gone. Their secret networks, erased. Their plans to cripple humanity, destroyed before they even began. The Xel'var strategist Lorukin slammed his fist against the war table. How? How did they find us? A long silence followed. Then, Supreme Chancellor Vorthax spoke. His voice was low, cold, calculating, because we were never hunting them. He turned, his sharp eyes burning with realization. They were hunting us. The Revenant's warning was never a warning. The moment the Revenant had appeared in Xel'var space, Dominion intelligence assumed it was a warning. But now they understood. It wasn't a warning. It was a message. A distraction. While the Xel'var focused on their covert war, the humans had done something unthinkable. They had let the Xel'var spies in, tracked them, monitored them, let them get comfortable, and then wiped them out. The true horror of humanity. For the first time in Dominion history, Xel'var war strategists felt something new. Dread. Not because humans were stronger, not because they had better ships, but because humans were playing the same game. And they were winning. One of the war ministers, his voice weak, finally spoke. Chancellor, what do we do? Supreme Chancellor Vorthax closed his eyes. There was only one option left. The Dominion had started this war, but they would not be the ones to end it. The Xel'var make their final move. A single Dominion warship was sent into human space. It did not carry weapons. It did not carry spies. It carried a message, a direct transmission to Terran High Command. From the most powerful leader of the Xel'var Dominion, Supreme Chancellor Vorthax himself. As the encrypted transmission reached Earth, Admiral Elias Wren sat in his war room, staring at the incoming signal. A message from the very empire that had tried to wipe humanity out. He exhaled slowly, then gave the order. Open the channel. And for the first time in history, the humans and the Xel'var would speak. The end of fear. The transmission from the Xel'var Dominion flickered across the war room screens. Admiral Elias Wren sat motionless, his expression unreadable. Across from him, Supreme Chancellor Vorthax appeared as a shimmering hologram, a leader who had once commanded unmatched fleets, unstoppable forces. Now, he looked like a man facing extinction. The message that changed everything. Vorthax's voice was measured careful. Humanity has demonstrated its strength. It has proven its capability. He paused, choosing his next words with uncharacteristic precision. We did not expect what happened, and for that, we miscalculated gravely. Ren folded his arms. You didn't miscalculate. You lost. Vorthax's jaw tightened. He exhaled slowly. Yes, we did. The war room fell silent. A Xel'var leader admitting defeat. Unheard of. The final choice. Vorthax leaned forward. We do not seek annihilation. We seek an end. He hesitated, as if the words pained him. The Dominion cannot sustain war with humanity. Not now. Not ever. Ren stared at him, studied him. Vorthax had spent his entire life believing the Dominion was the strongest force in the galaxy. Now he sat before Ren, stripped of arrogance, of pride. For the first time in Xel'var history, they were afraid. Humanity's answer. The War Council waited for Ren's decision. Would they demand the Xel'var's complete surrender? Would they finish the war before it could start again? Or would they do something unexpected? Ren's voice was calm, decisive. We are not conquerors, Vorthax. The Xel'var leader exhaled in relief, until Ren spoke again. But understand this. There will never be another war between us. He leaned forward. If you move against us again, if you ever challenge humanity's right to exist, we will erase your dominion from history. The room went silent. Vorthax nodded slowly. Then it is decided. The transmission cut out. The war was over. But the lesson would never be forgotten. The legend of the Revenant. The Xel'var never fought humanity again. They spread warnings across the stars. Tales of a ship that moved like a ghost and struck like a god. A ship that erased entire fleets without effort. The name Revenant became whispered across the galaxy. Not as a warship, but as a force of nature. A simple, undeniable truth. You do not fight humanity. You run. You hide. And you pray they never come looking for you.